It's my pleasure to hand over my duties to Mrs. Rebecca Hartgrove, President and CEO of the Tennessee Education Lottery Corporation, USA, as well as Senior Vice President of WLA, who will be moderating the Platinum Contributors session with Jim Kennedy from Scientific Games, Antonio Skerastaris from Intralot, Wendy Montgomery from IGT, and Mark Chabran from Novomatic Lottery Solutions. Please give them a warm welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It is indeed a pleasure to have all of you with us today. Jim and Antonios are experts at the Platinum panel, having done them for many, many years, but this is our first opportunity to interview Wendy and Mark, so welcome, and we appreciate you all joining us and all that you do for the industry. We know that our Platinum sponsors are very important to us in a whole wide range of things, not only the equipment that you supply us, but the support you do for the industry. So I want to start this panel by saying thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, the first topic I want us all to discuss is one that has been a topic that has been flowing through a lot of this conference, as well as some of the regional conferences around the globe. And that's the synthetic lotteries and the disruptors and what they're trying to do. I have a colleague and a friend who keeps saying to me, the genie's out of the bottle. There's nothing you can do about it. And yet we heard yesterday what Australia and Germany and others are trying to do to protect the good causes that they fund. Let's talk a little bit about those disruptors, what you think about them, how you think we can stop them. Is it important that we stop them? Have at it, Antonios.
Okay, so first of all, the interesting term is synthetic lotteries. What is a synthetic lottery? Yeah, just the definition of it indicates that what we're talking about is a virtual product. The second thing is, you know, most of the people around this table either serve good causes or have paid significant amounts to receive a license in one location. Now, whoever is creating a product based on either a government license or a license that has been acquired for a number of years is obviously taking advantage of the primary lottery to make money on the back of the primary lottery. So that, by definition, is the wrong thing to do. Regulation is clearly the answer. We heard the example of Australia yesterday. I think it was an excellent example. I think the regulators and the lotteries did a great job in blocking these synthetic, quote-unquote, products. I think that's the way forward. It's regulation, it's legislation, and it's the determination of people in this forum that is going to stop them going forward. And I think we should join our forces, all of us, you know, suppliers, lotteries, in that direction. And it's clear. We have to be strict, we have to be firm, and we have to fight it.
Yes, I would agree. Definitely the lottery disruptors are disrupting the flow of funds, and that represents a real threat to our industry. In my previous experience as a lottery operator, I had first-hand experience of that in Canada. And I think the panel yesterday that you led was a great example of how lotteries can fight back, especially that what we heard from Germany and Australia in terms of taking action, I think is the most important, and legal action is what we heard from yesterday's panel. Also, some of the creative ways Sue van der Merwe talked about in Australia that they are dealing with the issue of the synthetic lotteries. I think as a vendor, as a supplier to the industry of technology and a provider of business partnership to the industry, I think our role here is to really make sure that we are developing products and services and solutions to the industry to make sure that you're prepared for competition of this type. The comment that I thought was interesting yesterday from Hans was about the fact that once these lotteries, synthetic lotteries, get to about a 10% penetration, then legally you're in a more vulnerable position. So if that was to ever to come to pass, we need to make sure as an industry that we're able to compete and that we're offering our lottery players the best possible playing experience through authorized legal lotteries. And so that, I think, to me, is the role that IGT plays and our vendors here on the stage to help the lotteries to combat from the player experience perspective and the products and services, the games, the content that we offer.
Jim, Mark, any comments?
I'll just build on the comments so far. I think the basic idea, we've been doing these kind of panels for a long time, and this won't be the last time we talk about disruptors coming into the space. I think that the particular area that we focus on, first and foremost, is we are in the regulated gaming space, and that is huge. I mean, there's a big bright line between being in the regulated gaming space and not. And I think to Antonios' point, we invest a lot of money and a lot of our blood and treasure into making sure that that our customers, the people we do business with, are safe, right? We have over 400 gaming licenses. In fact, the person who is in charge of our security and compliance worldwide is a former assistant director of the FBI who was in charge of cybercrime and criminal investigations around the world. So Cygames takes it very, very seriously. The neighborhoods we go into need to be safe, right? But to your point, Wendy, people have to want to come into our neighborhoods, right? And that's content. So at the end of the day, if we're not balanced between the mission, safety, the regulatory framework, and why are consumers choosing this? Why is this an important disruptor? It's a very important balance to make sure that we're listening to the ultimate source of the lottery's revenues, which are the consumers.
Yep.
Yeah, from my point of view, obviously we are in a specific industry, and as Jim was saying, the key point is the regulation. And as far as Novomatic Lottery Solution, it's a small company in terms of lottery business. We're also part of a huge group which is very active in gaming industry, Novomatic, and we have exactly the same issue and the same situation, that we cannot collaborate with things that are so borderline, I'd say, so unclear. The other point is that we have some customers, our customers are lotteries. We have to be quite coherent with the positions of our customers or environments. So on the other hand, I will say that this kind of disruptors or new people also call the attention on something that maybe we need to think about, something that where there's kind of needs from the market of a certain group of consumers. So I think that also one of our role is to try to understand if these people are able to launch these kind of services of offer. Do we have something to take from these initiatives? So it's an aggression against the traditional model of lottery, and I used to work for a long time in a regulated lottery, and I know that it's, and personally, as a citizen, I absolutely support this concept of having a specific activity with specific rules due to the nature of the activity. So as far as they're not completely clear with the regulation, as a company we cannot collaborate, but probably we have to think about what kind of signals the market is also sending with this kind of disruption.
And building on what Jim said, why are these lotteries commercially successful? It's not because they have a better product, a more attractive product, or a better execution. It's because they don't pay taxes and they don't contribute to good causes. So this is the definition of unfair competition in any industry, in any part of the world. So, we need to understand what the customer wants and become better, but at the end of the day, if lotteries are for good causes and paying taxes, they have an unfair advantage over us, and that's what we have to fight.
When you look at probably the best known disruptor, Uber, they provided a product that customers wanted. But most of these disruptors are selling our product. You look at what Black Taxi did in London, and they found a way to try and replicate what Uber was doing. What are the disruptors, be they synthetic lotteries or parasites, be they the courier service or the synthetic lottery? What are they providing our customer that we can't, other than selling illegally in places where we won't go because we don't want to do things that are illegal? How can we provide our customers what are being provided by those folks who are just making money off of our products?
I think one of the speakers yesterday talked about this concept of accessibility and hyper-convenience, which I like the word of that. I think in the lottery industry, we need to make sure that our products were very conveniently available. And are they as conveniently available now as they were back then? Shopping patterns have changed so dramatically over the years, and I think we need to make sure that our products are as conveniently available to customers and players to be able to capture their imagination wherever and whenever they want to play. And I think that may be an area in which some of these disruptors have taken advantage or found a niche to explore or to exploit, rather, as the appropriate word, in the offerings. And so how can we, I go back to what can we do to make sure that we are competing, because we don't want to be in a position where they get more credibility, where, like Lottoland did in Australia, they got credibility by being on their national news networks. So we have to be prepared as an industry to make sure we're offering the best products that we possibly can, and we want to be able to help in that area to be able to offer that hyper-convenience. Of course, it's got to be regulated, it's got to be within age verification in the box in which we operate. But I think being responsive to players' needs and recognizing that players are actually engaging with these illegals is a wake-up call to the industry to say, how can we improve what we do in terms of delivering to our customers and players?
Jim, you talked a little bit about the neighborhood, and you and I have had a conversation about making that neighborhood safe. Would you expand on that?
Sure. I'm going to peel back the onion a little bit to, you know, we're so close to this business, sometimes we don't see the forest for the trees, right? And the truth is that the technical world, the media world, the content world outside of the lottery space is global, scalable. It's, you know, trans borders. It's not beholden to the local jurisdictions, right? The lottery industry, the highest authority in the state of Tennessee is the governor of Tennessee, right? And so as a result of that, what ends up happening is that these folks that can come in and scale and move across borders, move horizontally, have huge scale economic advantages, especially when they bypass the regulatory scheme. So part of the challenge, and I've resisted for years the fact that, you know, we live in this world where, you know, we make a deal in the UK and it's a different product than the one we do in North Tipping, which is different than the one we do in Tennessee, right? I think it's important that we embrace the fact that these regulatory neighborhoods are in fact what makes us different. And so back to the safe neighborhood, the last technical innovation that generally comes along is not technology, it's not media, it's not content, it's regulatory infrastructure, right? It's very slow to change. So I think one of the things that we can do about that, in your, you know, congratulations on your role as incoming president of WLA, is the more that jurisdictions that want to lead can look to some standard some published standard that says this is best regulatory practice, this is the best ways to sort of protect your neighborhood, then those thought-leading lotteries can adopt that, can use that as a reference point for their regulators. We on the supply side can certainly supply information from jurisdictions around the world, most of which don't work. We can say, don't do this, but here are the 10% that really do work, and help that virtual cycle. Just unplugged myself.
Don't move.
We can help the virtuous cycle of execution in this regulatory.
My fear has always been, and that's where I was hoping to go in safe neighborhoods, that you get a highly publicized global $1.6 billion jackpot, and concierge services say they've bought tickets, synthetic lotteries say they're betting on it, and there's a single winner and the prize isn't paid. Nobody's going to blame them, they're going to blame us. How do we know the neighborhood's safe when we put so much emphasis on the security and integrity of our product and we have no knowledge that that's actually occurring?
I think our neighbor is never going to be safe, like any neighbor is never going to be 100% safe. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we protect the boundaries, we ring fence. Best practice for regulators, I think, is a great idea. So, this is what happened in Australia. This is how you can adapt it for the US market. This is what we propose for Tennessee. This is what we propose for Louisiana, etc. But at the end of the day, I think the regulators and the lotteries have to be ahead of the game. So we have to be a little faster than the competition. Between the four of us and all of the lotteries, we have more resources.
Yep.
We have more experience. We have more firepower than our competitors, meaning synthetic and what have you, parasite, call it whatever you want. At the end of the day, I think if we're serious, all of us in this industry, about stopping it, we can stop it. And nothing can stop the internet.
Yes.
But in a regulated environment, you can geo-protect, you can ring fence, you can make examples of people that are punished for doing the wrong thing. You can give the right signals, and at the end of the day, companies like that will thrive as long as they can make money. If it becomes too difficult, I think it is going to be a less relevant discussion for them going forward. But the minute we don't react, is we give room to companies like that to thrive.
And we have to stick to the values of WLA and what it means to be in a regulated industry with boundaries and state authorizations and government sanctions, et cetera. Let's move on to another topic. For the last several years, the buzzword in our industry has been omni-channel. We all must be omni-channel. That seems to have disappeared. What's replaced it?
I can start on that one. I think you're right. Omni-channel was a bit of a buzzword and meant different things to different people. And I think the concept was noble, but as we have discovered in examining this a bit deeper, it's really, customers are looking for different experiences in different channels. It's not one same experience across all the different channels. And of course, we know customers are interacting in many different ways, and the channels are blurring. So and Paul Riley yesterday in his presentation talked about the concept of future play, the connected play, future of connected play rather. And so in our booth, we're sort of trying to highlight how we think in future customers will be able to interact in a lottery environment that is multi-channel and is connected. So that when you move seamlessly as you do through your life, from being at retail, being on the go, being at home, being out at a bistro, how lottery interacts with your life. And it's really about fitting into your life. And so I welcome everybody to come to our booth. We'd love your feedback in terms of what are some of the areas that really resonate with you. And because the idea here is to get our customers' feedback on what are the innovations that you think are going to really help you in your lottery, in your markets, to be able to attract players. And again, to be relevant, and to have that sort of accessibility that is within our boundaries and in the safe neighborhood, but in a way to attract customers, and especially those potential players that are not playing with us now.
Probably, I mean, as you remember, Novomatic started NLS with this concept, pushing really this concept. Personally, I think that the technology has been quicker than the maturity of the consumer. For me, there's no omnichannel if there is no player identification, to be clear. So as far as culturally you have such a lot of people who don't want to enter in that system, you accept to avoid a full experience of omnichannel. So in that case, technology is faster than maturity. If you go to some examples with some countries where you need to be identified for any game, then it really make sense, and it's very useful, and it gives you a benefit. If you are a kind of mixed situation, half-half, it's not so clear that you can have all the benefits. And now, most of the systems that we are preparing and delivering are fitting with omnichannels, and this is not a technical issue, again. This is the acceptance from the public, from the audience, from the consumer, to enter in this 100% connected world, even in an area where nowadays they still have a lot of people who want to say, okay, this is a kind of privacy, and I don't want to open completely. I accept to not have all the benefits, okay, but this is my choice. We have to be prepared. Our systems and our offer and services must be prepared, because what the consumer can accept from any other company, providers, probably one day, for sure, he will accept also from the lottery, from his lottery. And we have to be ready, and this is what we are doing right now. But again, from one place to another, the evolution will take time, and I don't think we will have a 100% omnichannel in a human life vision for this kind of product.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny, when I heard this question, I thought about, there's a line in the book 100 Years of Solitude, which was famous Colombian author Gabriel Garcia Marquez says, he says, the world was so new that in order to indicate something, you just had to point. And I think of that all the time as new words and new phrases come in. And I guess omni-channel is better than just pointing, right? The truth is it's omni-consumer. I think everybody's working on this. I think it's a fundamental, strategic concept. It's actually, it really is a specific term of art that we use in our UK business, and we've been doing it for a while now with sort of significant measurable results. So when we launch in our gaming business, when we launch on mobile, on machines, on desktops, they all have different regulatory rules. So you have to coordinate the regulatory rules, but you can scale the campaigning, you can scale the investment, you can go out and brand in a way that you can't in not an omni-channel environment. So the results we see are about a 4 times increase in the participation with a full omni-channel launch. And it becomes just like any other sort of advertising campaign, but it's got the technology behind it, where you're essentially coordinating over time these full omni-channel launches. That's the specific UK example. Again, I think when you pull back, this phrase is sort of, more of a universal phrase.
And I agree fully. Omnichannel is not a lottery thing. We did not invent the wheel. So we reapplied something that happens in a number of industries. So omnichannel for me is an enabler. There are customers that prefer this type of approach. There are customers who would give you 4 times better results if you have a good execution. At the end of the day, I think the market is going to evaluate how omnichannel approach is relevant to the industry. All of us have invested heavily behind an omnichannel approach, enabling the lotteries and the customers to interact with the product in a different number of ways. Is the lottery market ideal for an omnichannel approach, or is it too traditional? I think these are legit questions. The market is going to tell us whether now was the good time when we invested, or the market will be ready in a couple of years. But clearly it is a strategic decision for all of us to invest. Clearly it is an enabler. And I think that in a number of years, we will see also this market adapting to an omni-channel approach.
A slightly different twist on the same question. You're seeing a blurring of roles. You're seeing something Canada's done. I've talked to Wendy and Lynn both about what they're doing in Canada, but the casinos and sports betting and internet wagering and traditional lottery games and instant product and draw-based games, and it's all blurring together so that in a regulatory role, some of us, can be all things to all people. What are your companies doing to help us prepare for that future for those of us who aren't like Canada, haven't gotten there yet?
I'll start. We embarked starting about 5 years ago, as you know, on major investments in the gaming space, digital space, social space, in addition to our lottery business. So right now we have 4 divisions at Scientific Games: gaming, digital, lottery, and social. And just not even quite a year ago, we finished the transaction with NYX. And so bringing in OpenBet into our family and our digital business. I want to take a little different tact on this, Rebecca, because our experience over the last 5 years hasn't been so much bringing in the verticals. It's the management of an organization to de-silo the organization so it thinks like a converged business. That kind of social engineering is far more difficult than buying a company and plugging it into the machine, right? And I can tell you that in the management team in the lottery part of the company for Sci Games, you've got Pat McHugh, who is responsible for all of our global systems around the world, and he is the definition of a converged thinker. You've got John Schultz, who's responsible for all of our global instant products and services, who is the definition of a converged thinker. You've got Jennifer Welshens, who is in charge of all of our insights. Of course, we have a huge team. We've got almost 10,000 people at Scientific Games. But that group of people and the extended group of engineering, Walt Isola, who is our CTO, we all sit at the same table. We all work through the same issues. We're all focused on the same solutions. And I can tell you that 5 years ago, just in the lottery, we had 5 different companies. And it's easy to put this on a whiteboard. It's easy to draw verticals and horizontals. But it takes a long time to get people to think in terms of convergence and integration to the point where they're communicating it through the organization. So it's obviously where the world is headed. We've invested nearly $9 billion to be relevant to you all. And so I just wanted to share, because I've talked to many of you, and I know that it's the social engineering that's more difficult than sometimes the technical engineering.
Yeah, I would agree, and also from my lottery operator experience in Canada, where there is more of an oversight of the full spectrum of gaming, it's critical in the lotteries, from my experience, to cross-pollinate that thinking. And we weren't perfect at it at OLG by any stretch of the imagination. And now that I'm at IGT, I see this as a huge opportunity. And I think, one of the, we're also a large global lottery and gaming organization operating in many sectors, 100 countries throughout the world, 12,000 employees. I think the social engineering, as you mentioned there, Jim, is so critically important. It's the culture of the organization. If we, in our organization, have that, which we do, have that sharing, it's one of the beautiful things I love about the lottery industry, is that as a lottery industry, we share. We've just got to make sure we take that culture of sharing outside of lottery to the broader gaming industry. And within the vendor and supplier community at IGT, we try every day to be able to collaborate with our colleagues, not only in gaming and the other verticals, but also with the people that work in the operators. So our friends at Lottomatica and friends that operate our lottery businesses elsewhere, because that cross-pollination of ideas and that sharing of ideas was going to help us better respond to this blurring of the lines that you talk about, which happens in other industries too, but it's happening in our industry, and we have to be prepared, and really is an openness, a lack of territorial, siloed thinking. You have to be able to collaborate with your colleagues to be able to win the battle.
I love that sigh.
Yes.
Yes. Why?
Theoretically speaking, convergence is the way forward. How different is the casino industry from the lottery industry? How different are the casino people from the lottery people? I'm concerned about whether convergence of the gaming, quote unquote, environment or universe is a convergence of things that can converge together. I see significant differences in the mindset, in the approach towards the business, in the regulatory environment, in the distribution channels between the various gaming silos or business units, or call it whatever you want. I think it's going to be a great challenge trying to make ends meet. I think that the social approach towards the industry is key, and I think we need a generation change if we're ever even going to consider putting all of those things together. And my colleagues from IGT's iGames and Novomatic have a greater experience in the casino space, but it's vastly different. It's a completely different mindset. The good causes mindset and working for a government, for the state of Tennessee, is a completely different mindset than going after my GGR target for 42nd week in a casino in Atlantic City. Completely different mindset. The customer is different. The regulatory framework is different. Can the industry make ends meet? I am not, we should theoretically.
Yep. And I would say, having worked around the world and having worked in different markets, we need to focus on the similarities versus the differences. And respect the differences. So, you've outlined all those differences. I totally agree. Having been in the gaming side, the lottery side, and more so on the lottery side, there's more that I need to learn about gaming. But I think, yes, there are differences. But as a broader gaming industry, customers don't define us as lottery, gaming, sports. They just see us as entertainment, a way to spend their discretionary dollars. And for us to be part of that in the future, I think we need to focus on what are the similarities. And those similarities lie in the customers. I think it lies in the players that are looking for an entertaining experience, whether that's buying a Powerball ticket and dreaming about the future of what they would do if they won, or playing at a casino. I think we've got to focus on the customer experience that we're trying to create as an industry. And I encourage you, when in the lotteries, to embrace the other lines of business, because you can think about them as, oh, they're different. They're not like me. That casino player is different than lottery. But focus on the similarities, and we'll get further together.
I'd like to. We could do like 2 hours on this.
Yeah, no.
It's a great point. All hell is about to break loose in the United States starting in January. And it's not that sports betting, happened in passed, I believe, in May. It's that the regulators, the policymakers are going to try to figure out what their regulatory gaming space looks like for the next 5 to 10 years. And I do think we have a responsibility to set examples of what the future should look like based on lessons learned from the past. And I think Europe is a great example that if you don't have a regulatory schema that essentially says this is how you maximize benefit for the state, right? The state, the country. What you're going to do is you're going to inadvertently create competition among verticals and needlessly give away GGR, right? Because you don't have a way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because coming from the past, it is very separate and very different. I don't disagree with your core point. I guess I disagree with the future orientation. When we bought WMS in Bali, we went out and did a full panel of research across the United States and Europe, which I won't go into the details other than to really support what Wendy said. These are the same people. They're just moving between entertainment experiences. I think this is a very, very critical time to be able to create very cogent, clear benefits of what a converged gaming environment looks like, how to monetize it, how to regulate it, especially in the United States.
Since we touched the subject of the United States, sports betting will change in the United States. It will change the market because it's bigger than the existing market. It is our responsibility to guide and influence as much as possible regulators in the right direction. We have examples. Australia is an excellent example. Parts of Europe are an excellent example. But see what's happening in Germany, where you have the state regulators favoring semi-legal operators over state lotteries. So if you look at the percentage of sports gaming that's going through the lotteries in Germany, it's a very small percentage compared to what is happening in the market. So that's a bad example we would need to avoid. We need to try and bring the best practices into the regulators, the US regulators, who, honestly speaking, and I've spoken to many of them, they don't understand the game. It's a new thing. And most regulators are not your average sports betting players that have a habit and an experience. They don't. So it is our task, I think, to give best practices. Guide is maybe a strong word, but give the best practices, try to influence strongly and for the benefit of the industry, because at the end of the day, you don't have to give away the margin. You can still support the good causes through the lotteries in sports betting as well, and you can create a healthy regulatory environment for the game. And now is the time, so between now and the end of 19, I think is the time when most of the states will make those decisions. And we're certainly investing a lot of time behind trying to convey the right message. But the messages are there, UK, France, not Germany.
Whether we're talking about disruptors, whether we're talking about channels of distribution, whether we're talking about the blurring of various kinds of gaming, at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is the entertainment value for the player.
Yeah.
What are your companies doing to help us provide the entertainment value that really addresses all of the issues we've been talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Maybe, thank you very much. Maybe one comment on that. I will say that Novomatic Not-Free Solution is probably culturally software company and technology company. And again, in that way, technology must support the player experience, and this is the key point. So we're investing, all of us, we're investing a lot in technology just to make sure that people will not have to see the technology. It's a strange situation, but in any case, people have to find the value entertainment, but they have also to understand that there is a value which is different from buying a lottery ticket than from having fun in the casino, maybe going back to what you were saying before that. So in any case, the consumer is more and more in contact with very, very easy and practical offer from any other provider. So as far as you are able to, you don't know how to have to for dinner, you just have to click on the button. And it's so easy that even the guy will deliver the pizza will go to the house of your friend where you were last week because you just forget to mention that you change your place, okay? So technology will say, no, you're here and not here. So as a lottery provider, we need to collaborate with the lottery to make sure that the player will identify what is the benefit, and also make sure that one of the most common understanding that we have on our industry when we are discussing together with the community of the lottery is really understood by the consumer. And I'm not sure, except in some cases, that the consumer, it's so clear for him. And again, it's a kind of infinite quest, make sure that the people, what is the sense of what I'm doing? And I think that most of the time you don't even think about it, you just do it. So it's continuous to communicate and to explain to the people what is the difference with what we are doing and why we are doing this kind of product or this kind of activities as a lottery organization, supported by the providers of this community. And make sure that sometimes they think about that, okay, it's different, yes, think about one thing. I don't want to make a comment. I live in Spain, and in Spain, you got ONCE. Okay, for ONCE, it's for the people in Spain. It's so easy to understand that as far as they're buying a ticket to an ONCE, there's an immediate visibility of what they're doing, which is tremendously strong and very strong relation. I'm not sure that they have the same sensation when they buy a ticket to any other provider, any other company. So building this link and try to keep the link when everything is changing at the same time, this is a very difficult task.
I think this is a critical issue for the industry, and you're right, they're all interconnected that we've been discussing, Rebecca. For the health and sustainability of the money that we, the lottery industry, you, the lottery customers, work hard to create, we need to have a vibrant base of healthy players that are continuing to play the lottery. And it's a critical issue, I know, in many jurisdictions around the world. And I think as partners to you, as business partners and suppliers, vendors of the technology, we have a role to play in that. And the role that IGT, I'm particularly proud of, is really trying to help understand, first of all, the players, the retailers, and then the customers. What are the insights that we can gather from our footprints all around the world to be able to look at what types of products should we be developing? What sort of services should we be offering to you, the lottery customers, to be able to capture those potential players that are non-players or infrequent players now? And so I think that's the role, certainly at IGT. We invest heavily in the research that I mentioned amongst players, retailers, and our customers. We have about 350 studies that we conduct in a year in 500 markets to glean those insights and to look outside of our industry to inform the types of products that we innovate, develop, and then offer to you, the lottery customers, to attract those new potential players.
So, we work in 3 pillars. One is relevance and attractiveness of the product. So, and that uses technology as an enabler, but at the end of the day, it's about how attractive the product is to the customer. The second is accessibility, being able to offer the product in omni-channel or whatever is relevant for the specific market. The third one is content, and since we are talking about entertainment, at the end of the day, content is relevant. I think content will become a lot more relevant even in the lottery industry. It's in the VLT industry, in the casino industry, it's probably more important than the equipment itself. But I think we're going to see in the lottery industry the importance of content to increase in the next years. And these are, for Intralot, the 3 pillars where we're building the product offering on.
Probably, yes. Sorry, Jim. Please. Yeah. So probably this is also one of the major changes that there is a kind of real acceleration of the time and lifetime of the consumer. So probably we also have to be able to propose almost face-to-face game when we used to come from huge and massive collection game. And now the consumer maybe want to have something which is immediate and directly for him. So it's really changing the model. We still have the capacity to raise huge amounts of money and move huge amounts of people with all these huge jackpots that, again, you have in the US a few weeks ago. But I would say in the daily relation with the product, you are going to more and more personalized game, and which is not easy to build because this is, I will say, almost the opposite of what a lottery is in terms of concept, which is a lot participation, huge participation. So it's more and more segmentation and more content probably for the future, and quite difficult to keep the ball rolling.
I would, we are primarily a games company. We're scientific games. And I really do think we grew up differently in this industry because we had to come up with a new game every week for every customer. And that's not about philosophy. That's about what works. What do people buy? What do they like? The constant improvement. And so when you have in the DNA of your culture tens of thousands of games, and you measure every one, you develop a real sensitivity around this. And I equate it to the difference HBO and having content versus the cable box and what's actually driving the value. In our social business, we do billions of transactions and we measure every single interaction. And I'm sure everybody around on this dais has similar real-time reading of information. But I think if I were to go back to the safe neighborhood analogy, if this was full of consumers, the only thing they would care about in this whole discussion is what cool new games, right? And we can't forget that. That's what fuels everything. So that's my thought.
Well, as you can see, our time is up, but I have to ask one last question. I couldn't let this panel go by without me asking. High-performance business growth is enhanced with diversity and inclusion. WIL was formed to help give a platform for women to advance where they have not across the globe in the industry. What are you all doing to help? You got 2 seconds, Pino. Quick answer.
Okay, so first of all, I think this WIL initiative is a great thing. We and I personally fully support, and you know that. I think that to grow in a diverse world, you need diversity. We have benefited as a company a lot from putting policies to support diversity within our group. I think, am I allowed to say that? I think women think in a more organized way and definitely bring more value to any group and more balance. So, I'm trying.
And you're one of our mentors.
Yes. And
As is Wendy, as is Jim. Yeah. Wendy?
So my ad is, I think this afternoon we have at 4 to 5 o'clock, correct me if I'm wrong, the first ever, if I'm not wrong on this one, WLS WIL event. And so IGT is sponsoring that, and we're delighted to be part of this. I commend you for having initiated and starting the work on WIL. Clearly, I'm passionate about this area myself. I'm at IGT, we have an Office of Diversity and Inclusion led by Kim Lee. We have a strategic plan around diversity and inclusion. I'm the co-chair with our CFO, Alberto Fernaro, of the WIN, which is Women Inclusion Network at IGT. We have, as I mentioned, a strategic plan and are continuing to focus not just on the female issue. Of course, diversity has many different parts, and diversity is just the start of it. Inclusion is a key piece of this. You can't just put a woman in a place or other diverse people. You've got to include people. The quote I've got to say is the one that I love, which is, diversity is inviting people to the party, and inclusion is inviting them to dance. So we need to encourage, and not only to have representation of people like me up here, but including people of diversity to engage in creating better outcomes for our industry.
And you being here is already an improvement.
Thank you.
Over Mike and...
Jim or Mark, any comments?
Just quickly, I like Rose Hudson, the president of the Louisiana Lottery Corporation. Rose Hudson, there you go. she gave me a phrase I love, which is, you can't be what you can't see.
That's a good one.
And, you know, just since March, we've had 15 events, 15 trainings, 15, we have a, you know, a head of diversity inclusion.
Yep.
IGT and Scientific Games are founding members of the All-In in the gaming, you know, in the gaming sector. But, you know, clearly you taking a position on this and leadership on this has helped us all. So, so thank you.
Yeah, you probably know that NLS is one of the part of the DNA of NLS is in Iceland, which is probably right now the most advanced country for the diversity and equality. So we have some colleagues who are just reminding us that this is something very important. On top of that, as far as we're working all in really international companies with international markets, completely different, we used to have for a long time people from everywhere. And my point is that this is something that personally, when I used to work for a French company in France on my French monopoly, the diversity, we had an issue in terms of basically this is the same population that you are working in the company, okay, because it's close. Then these companies start to make a lot of efforts to open, and not only in terms of gender, in terms of different people, different origins of people. As far as started to work in this industry on the vendor side with multinational and multicultural companies, I think that we are already prepared to have a lot of different groups of people who are collaborating all day long in all different markets. And again, positive discrimination is something which is always a bit complicated. We had to make some adjustment in the board of Iceland, the Icelandic company, to follow the rules and the new rules. But sometimes you have to force to get things done. And again, we are a smaller company than IGT, Scientific, or Intralot, but culturally we have a very strong push from our colleagues.
Please help me thank Mark Chabron, Novomatic, Jim Kennedy, Scientific Games, Wendy Montgomery, IGT, Antonio Skirastaris, Intralot, and I will look forward to seeing all of you at the Will event this evening, right after the PGRI Hall of Fame. Thank you all.